Welcome, this is Stephen Boniface and this video is about the works of Ronald Brunskill. Ronald Brunskill was born in 1929 and died in 2015. He was an architect and historian who had a significant influence and was passionate about the conservation of vernacular architecture. It is my view that reading his books is an essential beginning to the study of conservation in Britain. In this video, I will talk about 4 of those books that I believe to be the most important and the ones that I refer to most frequently. We start with the first book I bought of his, and indeed the first book he wrote, and that is the Illustrated Handbook of Vernacular Architecture. This book has been prepared in order to help those who have little or no previous knowledge of the subject to an understanding and appreciation of the wealth of vernacular architecture in this country. The book starts by looking at construction materials for walling and roofing. We see an example page from a section on roofing, and this is laid out typically with text and an image to the left and sketches and annotation prepared by Mr. Brunskill on the right hand side. After this, the book looks at plan and sections of buildings as well as architectural details before looking at specific types of buildings, and here we see an example from the section on farm buildings. Towards the back of the book there are a series of maps showing distribution of materials, and here we see those relating to timber walling. There are sections on recording buildings towards the end of the book, and in my view this book is an essential start for any student of conservation in Britain. The next book is the Traditional Buildings of Britain, and in the introduction here, Ronald Brunskill says, "It is not about the great and imposing buildings which we usually call works of architecture, but about the smaller and less pretentious buildings which are far more numerous and which provide an essential background for the great architectural works." He develops these themes in the book by looking at the various forms of vernacular buildings that are likely to be found, and provides typical examples in plans and sections, as well as looking at the common walling and roofing materials. Towards the end of the book there is an examination of the various regional variations. In this image we see a Wealden house and some sketches and layout plans for the building. This is in the section that looks at typical sections and plans. Later in the book there is an exploration of architectural decoration, and as with all of these books it is well illustrated with many examples provided. The last section of the book looks at regional variations, and here we see examples from North and East Wales. As with all of his books, there are useful bibliographies and references towards the end, and these provide pointers to further research and reading. Together with the previous book, these books provide an excellent start for anyone wanting to learn about vernacular architectural history. The next book I want to look at is Timber Building in Britain. This was published in 1985 and is probably the book I refer to most frequently as part of my day-to-day work. This is perhaps unsurprising as I am based in the eastern part of the country where timber framing is prevalent. The book itself is divided into 4 sections that look at construction, an illustrated glossary of terms, the chronology of timber building, and regional variations. The section relating to construction considers the conversion of timber and the methods of construction. However, in this image we see some buildings that are partly stripped and in semi-derelict condition. With many timber frames, it is only as they are exposed that we gain a better understanding of the construction. Nonetheless, it is sad to see buildings in this condition. Moving to the glossary section, This is well illustrated, and in fact many of the illustrations in this book are from farm buildings, particularly barns. This image reminds us that barns can be rather cathedral-like in their nature. Here we see further extracts from the glossary section. In this instance, we see examples of carpenter's marks and chamfer stops. As you may anticipate, there are a number of illustrations of joints, but also some repair methods. The next section is a chronological survey of timber buildings, but in this instance it is primarily by way of illustration. And here you can see me flicking through the various pages. The very first image is of the Church of St Andrew at Grinstead in Essex, said to be the oldest timber frame structure, dating from the Saxon period. But as you can see, the illustrations cover a wide range, including examples from the 18th and 19th centuries. Towards the end of the book, there are a series of maps showing distribution of materials. And in this example, you will see close studding and square panels. It is perhaps fair to say that this is the most frequently referenced book in my collection. But as a point of interest, the dust cover is an older image of Little Hall, Lavenham, which happens to be a building that I have inspected and have involvement with to this day. The last of the 4 books is Brick Building in Britain. This was published in 1990 as a successor to English brickwork that had been published some decades before. Since this book was published, a further edition called Brick and Clay Building in Britain was published in 2009. Each edition provides additional information, although in each there are some sections and photographs that are the same. This book is divided into 3 main parts, the first of which looks at the brick making and use of bricks, whereas the second section is a glossary, and the final part of the book is a chronological survey. It is therefore set out in a similar manner to the Timber Building in Britain book. This is the only Brunskill book in my collection that has colour plates within it, and here we see one where the use of bricks is considered and illustrated with 4 colour photographs. In this next image, there are further colour photographs illustrating the variety of ways in which brick is used. Next, we move on to the glossary, and here I show a page where brick bonding is illustrated, both in terms of photographs and line drawings. In fact, the glossary is full of a combination of photos and line drawings that more than adequately illustrate the terms used. Towards the back of the book is the chronological of brick use in buildings. Here, as with the Timber Building in Britain book, the chronology is primarily illustrated by way of photographs. As you can see here as I flick through the pages, it includes modern buildings and the use of brickwork in the 20th century. It takes us back through the Georgian period, as well as the Jacobean, Stuart and Queen Anne era. There are also a number of illustrations of medieval brickwork. As you can see, it is well illustrated. This provides a useful resource that can help in dating buildings. In the appendices of the book, there are sections looking at the brick taxes of the 18th and 19th centuries. It is my view that this book is yet another essential for anyone interested in the history and development of brickwork. It is useful to the student of conservation, but also to anyone interested in understanding the history of buildings. I hope you have found this guide useful. It is my view that Brunskill books are essential reading for anyone interested in conservation. Sadly, they are no longer in print, but many are available through second-hand outlets on the internet. But I have also found one or two by walking through the book sections of charity shops and second-hand bookshops. They are certainly worth looking out and purchasing if the opportunity arises. I hope you find these books and have fun reading them. Thank you.